Well, hello. Genesis chapter 38 today. It'll be awkward. We'll wait for some folks to get here. Super excited to be in your midst. Remember, we're having a discussion, which means feel free to comment, question, thoughts. Hi, Jean. The Lord be with you. Jennifer, peace be with you. All those things. Let's rock and roll with that. Hi, friends. Jacoby, Brian, Basitano, Terry Lynn, Cheryl, Linda, Jennifer. I think I got everybody. Marilyn. There it is. And Mom. Sue Pellegrini's here. Excellent. If I could have planned this better, this would have been done by the dean. Oh, it's going to be awkward. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be so... there's only one thing to do here. Lesrel. We are taking a break from Joseph, who is on his way to slavery. And in the meantime, we cut away to, yes, awkward is my speciality. Yeah. 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 And away we go. And so, at that time, Judah went down from his brothers and turned aside to a certain Adullamite whose name was Hurrah. Hurrah! We probably should take note that this probably means that, well, this doesn't probably mean this, yeah, right, Maggie. They weren't separated from the people, the indigenous people. They hung around with them. They made friends with them. Just because they didn't marry them, they were friends with them. And this is literally, he pitched his tent up to a man of Adullam. So he sojourned with them. He visited with them. He was, yeah, Judy, if you're making ribs, who needs ribs? This pastor. Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. And he took her and he entered her. So it goes. So it goes. So he looks at her and he's like, hubba, hubba. And then he takes her. And yeah. She conceived and bore a son. And they called his name Er. She conceived again and bore another son. And she called his name Onan. And she conceived again. Because, you see, there's nothing to do uh, in Canaan other than she called the third kid Shelah, and Judah was in Chezib when she bore him. So, three kids: Er, Onan, and Shelah. With interestingly put that in lowland Judah, that's where he was. Yeah, she's a fertile myrtle. So this is why also that the Kyle and Dalish both say that the area of Chezib claims Shelah as an important character. Judah took a wife. So Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. It's going to go south now. Oh, let's not forget that this is no-go. Who's he not supposed to be taking wives with? He's taking wives from the indigenous people, and who's he not supposed to be taking wives with? Let's just think it through here for a bit, and you can answer in the channel. And the first person that gets it, I'll recognize. Yeah, he's not supposed to be taken. Yeah, those girls. Cheryl, you are exactly right. Erica, you are exactly right. He's not supposed to be taking wives from outside the faith. He's not supposed to be taking wives from those girls. Is it like West Side Story? A girl like that. The fact that I know West Side Story, here's my man card. You can have it. That's one issue. If you have an issue with the way this is described, he sees the daughter, he takes her, this is why I say to the confirmads all the time, the girls, I'm like, girls, I want you to repeat this with me. And I want all of you to repeat this with me. You in the channel, you can repeat this too. Boys have cooties and eat dirt. Judah has cooties and he eats dirt. Judah only needs a reason to be naughty, not nice. So Judah has cooties and he eats dirt. That's why I tell them, wait to date, because boys are bad. They have cooties and they eat dirt. So if you're looking at Judah, you're like, you're a bad guy. You're a very, 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 very bad man, Judah. Well, par for the course, because boys have cooties and they eat dirt. Judah is a boy, therefore Judah has cooties and eats dirt. He sees this girl, he takes her, he takes her. Moving right along. But Judah's firstborn, was raw. He was wicked. He was evil. before the face of Yahweh, in the eyes of Yahweh. And so Yahweh, that's a hithphil. That means Yahweh did it. Yahweh killed him. All right. Yahweh's Old Testament, getting into the Old Testament. Was wicked. Is now dead. We do not know sin. We do not know what it is. We just know that he was wicked. He's a very, 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 very bad man. And that was the heir. Trying to make it fun here. A little less awkward. Judah says to, hello, Felicity. Glad you missed the first part. Judah said to Onan, enter into the wife of your brother. And an established seed to her. Yeah. So this was a custom. I'm the first of, I am the second son. My oldest son, my oldest brother, very private person, so we'll simply refer to him as Jay. And two brothers after me, Franz and DP. So if my older brother was married and did not have kids before he died, then it would fall to me to continue his family in ancient times. And so I would, which is gross because it's his wife, but it's not his wife anymore because he's dead. But, and if I died after taking her as a wife, then Franz would tend to it, and the kids in her belly would be still Jay's. Not mine, not Franz's, not DP's. So that's the custom, or appears to be the custom. And that's why when dies, Judah's like, look, I'm going to need you to do the seed thing to continue on the line. And I guess Judah was, under the impression that the dean is here. You know, I wish the dean had been here to do the whole chapter. But watch the dean get next week. You meant it for evil, God meant it for good. I'm going to lose my stuffing if the dean gets that. I may actually take 2 weeks to do this just so the dean doesn't get that. Anyway. Because we believe that God is the God of the living. That's why the dean says this is all about resurrection. The family line has to continue. It's all about promises. Promise made, promise kept by God. And Judah needs to continue his family. The promise needs to be born. But is not the guy. Onan, we're going to find out what he does now. Onan, imagine this, having a Onan knew that the seed would not be his. So whenever he went into his brother's wife, he would ruin, waste, corrupt, the onto the ground so as not to give a seed to his brother. So he knew the seed wouldn't be his, and so his way of dealing with it was and then he wouldn't, and he would on the ground, and so they're, yeah. Gift rejected. He doesn't want to be part of the plan to continue the line. Doesn't want to love his brother's family in this way. Verse 10. And this was wicked before the eyes of Yahweh, and so Yahweh offed him too. So a lot of times you'll hear about the sin of Onan, and this is the sin of Onan. A lot of sort of fundamentalists will use this verse for anti-birth control or anti I believe there was a Seinfeld episode. So this is used both for anti-birth control. It's also used by many fundamentalists for you've turned your body into an amusement park, George, from Seinfeld. Moving on. But this is evil in the sight of God. This is evil. I can't tell whether or not the intent is what's evil, or the and Maggie's right. This is not the most effective birth control method. We know that now. Felicity, you're going to have to talk to your pastor about that subject. But take into account what is being rejected. I mean, it's very, very important. What is being rejected? I do not want to be involved in the in my brother in the promise. I don't want to be involved in that. I love myself and what I'm going to do more than I love what you're doing. I'm not going to be involved in this. I'm not going to be involved in this. And so he rejects the gift of being involved in the seed, and God finds that evil. So you've got Er that was evil, and Onan that was evil, and all of this is evil in the sight of God. Verse 11. So Judah now needs an heir still. So Judah says to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain, stay. Right. As an interesting point by Finker, there's never an action without an intent behind it, which is evil. Yeah. Okay. So back to our remain a widow in your father's house. until Shelah, my son, becomes great or older. And the commentary is that he said this because he was afraid. He thought that lest he would die also, like his brothers. So Tamar went and remained, as she was told, in her father's house. So, and there's a Tobit reference in this. Says if you want to try to capture what they were thinking. The idea here is there's an apocryphal story of a wife who married 7 men who died, 7 brothers. And so Judah, even though this is probably well before that story, has in his mind, okay, so you married and died. You married Onan died. So now all I've got left is Shelah. I give you him, you're going to kill him too. You're a black widow, man. In the course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. Okay, so this is important though. Notice this wife has no name. And it's important. It's important to take note that there's probably a reason for that. This is not supposed. He's not supposed to be marrying the ladies of Canaan. This whole thing is out of bounds. You did not, Sandra. You did not. Sheila, my boyfriend's back. Why do you plant thoughts like that? I would just like to say that was not my fault. NMF, not my fault. Shua's daughter died. When Judah, there's Noah. When Judah was comforted, that's a passive. He went up to Tamar, to his sheep shearers. And this is not comfort like Isaac was comforted. This is comforted. So he sort of mourned, or he was mourning, and he had reached a point in which he was, so he goes to Timnah to a sheep, he and his friend Hirah, the Adulamite. So he and his buddy, they go up to shear sheep in order to take their mind off the thing. He was comforted. He moved on. When Tamar was told, your father-in-law so when Tamar was told that your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear sheep, she took off her widow's garments. Uh-oh. And she covered herself. She clothed herself. She covered herself with a veil, with a shawl. So she sort of Middle Eastern over her head. Thor is asleep right down there. Can you see him? Hey, little buddy. He's asleep. I love you too, buddy. You're such a cute boy. All right. So she finds out that he is yeah, he doesn't want anything to do with this study. He took off his garments and he covered himself. She took off her garments, her widow's garments, covered herself with a veil, wrapped herself up or shawl, and sat at the entrance of Im, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was great. He'd grown up, and she had not been given him in marriage. So you did not keep your word, Judah. So now she's going to take matters into her own hands. So what we've had so far is Judah marrying somebody he shouldn't marry, giving Tamar to he dies. Onan, well, that's a hot mess, literally, all over the ground. And then, and now, Judah's wife has died, and he still hasn't done what he agreed to her to do. Go to your dad's house, wait for Shelah to get older. As soon as he gets older, you can have him. It's the right thing to do. So she takes matters into her own hands. Literally. When Judah saw her, he considered her to be a prostitute. When I was at seminary, I was sitting in one of the classes, and I think it was pastoral care, and somehow we had a discussion about a certain situation in the life of the professor, the ministry of the professor, and he referred to someone as a floozy, and I literally had to rate. Felicity, boys should be ruined for you. As I said earlier, boys have cooties and they eat dirt. You shouldn't date until you're 18, 19, or 20. I'm just saying. But he called somebody a floozy, and I had to raise my hand. I'm like, Professor, what's a floozy? Tamar is impersonating a floozy. Judah thinks that this, woman of the night, he thinks that she's and this is the common word for, this is a common word for prostitute. This is not a special word for prostitute. This is a woman who gets around. She commits fornication. One of the meanings is whore, but that is not a proper word for us today. So he turned at the roadside and said to her, hey, baby, what's your sign? He says to her, let me come into you. Can I sleep with you? And the text says, because he did not know that this was his daughter-in-law. Yes, Monica, lady of the evening. Was Tamar hoping to be pregnant? I think so, yes. Yes, Maggie. That's what this is all about. She is more righteous than Judah. Boys are naughty. Hey, can I sleep with you? Let's get it on. Let's get it on. Little Marvin Gaye in the background. Um, he doesn't know that it's her brother-in-law, her father-in-law. And so she says, "What will you give me that you may enter into me?" Here's the gross euphemism. See how it is used of a prostitute and how Jacob talks about his wives earlier. I think that is. I think Pastor Finker, the dean, is right on, because I got Terry Lynn to slap her face, just covering her face. But I think this is right. This is so graphic, and yet Jacob talked about his wives like this. He talked to them like it was, you know. He answered and said, I will shalak, I will send you a young goat from the flock. So a night with you for a small goat. 2 goats. No, 1 goat. And she said, I mean, she says, you need to give me a pledge until you send it. So I need some collateral. This is a negotiation going on. This is fascinating. Well, what pledge shall I send to you? Shall I give to you? Shall I natan to you? And she replied, your seal and your cord and your staff. No pun intended here. Your staff, which is in your hand. So he gave them to her, and he, bow is the Hebrew word for to go in, and that's what he does into her, and she conceives. Cheryl, you're having way too much fun. Yeah. Signet was an engraved personal sign which left its mark in soft clay. You'll see in the old Roman sort of things where they would make a mark with a ring. And I'm not certain whether or not a signet is a ring in Old Hebrew. The cord was worn around the neck or as a ring. And then he goes, yeah. And this is immoral. Leviticus 18:15. You are not to sleep with your daughter-in-law. This is immoral. This is immoral. This is bad. No good. So he takes her and he thinks that she's a harlot, and so he does his business with her. Yeah. I do believe that this was punishable by stoning in the Old Testament. And that was stoning, and not in a fun way. Giant rocks thrown at you. Verse 19. So she got up, went on her way, and she took off the shawl, and she put on the garments of her widowhood. Successful operation. Who's wrong in this? Is Tamar wrong in this? Or is Judah wrong in this? Who has been wronged? And Finker's question is great. Who's going to die for this? Because someone needs to die for this. Because this is a sin. Oh, Terry Lynn, you must be a great mom. Both of them. Well, let's continue on. But let's continue on. Let's not let the dean steal it. Jesus is the one who's wrong. Well, let's hold up on that. He who knew no sin has become Tamar and Judah's sin. But she goes back to life, the regular life. Judah went and got his young goat by his friend, sent a young goat by his friend, the Adulamite, to take the pledge from the woman's hand. But he did not find her. Oh. So Judah needs his cord, his staff, no pun intended, and his signet back. So the next morning, he sends his buddy to go and get them back. Notice he doesn't do it. And we're going to find out how bad this actually is, because it gets worse. Okay? The Adulamite God keeps his promise despite the mess the sinners made. And it was a mess. On the ground, a mess. In Tamar, a mess. With Judah, it's a hot mess of stupid. So like the Adulamite asks the men of the place, where's the and this is a different word. This is the Kadesh. Where's the temple prostitute who was at Enem at the roadside? And they said, no temple prostitute has been here. So let me tell you about contemporary worship in Genesis. Okay? Contemporary worship in Genesis went this way. Yahweh was worshipped a certain way. Yahweh laid out how he was worshipped, how he would be worshipped, how he wanted his people to worship him. The world and the world's religion worshipped Baal and the other gods of the area the way they thought best to grow their churches big. And the best way to grow their churches big is to have things that are relevant. And can you get any more relevant than this magic moment? And so the worship of the other gods of the area involved getting busy. You want churches that grow? Add that. It'd be very relevant. Everybody will be on board. But it's godless and evil. And Judah is on board with it because, well, he's a boy. And boys have cooties. And they eat dirt. And so the idea, so let's add to Judah's problem. It's not only that he lies to Tamar. It's not only that he marries a woman outside the faith. He also lies to Tamar. And then he participates in the worship that is going on. Get busy. He thinks he's a cult prostitute. I'm on board with your God. I'm on board with your fertility god, Baal, Asheran, all of them bring death. So make no mistake about it. This is not just, he saw a prostitute. She was like, hey, honey, you want to have a good time? He was like, hell yeah, I do. How's about a goat? Okay. That reminds me of a story, but there's no time to tell it. So, Terry Laney doesn't spill like Onan because that would be evil. And if you pause and go, well, that's the way men are. I mean, sinners, mankind. Another one of those moments where you're like, that seems like odd religiosity, is we can't go up there, Pilate, in order to participate in the trial of Jesus because that would make us unclean. So you're going to have to come out. Now, they're trying to murder Jesus, but they're so religious that they need to be clean on the Sabbath day, so they can't go into the praetorium to participate in the trial because that's the house of the Gentile governor. And so the trial has to go outside because of how religious they are while they try to murder people. We love to fold our hands and be religious while we sin. So of course he's not going to do the Onan thing because he's Judah. And that would be evil. You're joining with a prostitute. Judah replied, let her take them, that we may not become an object of ridicule. So let her keep that stuff. I sent this young goat, and you didn't find her. So let her keep this stuff, lest, what we've done sort of become obvious to everyone. So better to just, make a new signet ring. It's not like she's going to do anything with the cord, the signet, the staff. No pun intended. So, 3 months later, Judah has a David Nathan moment. 3 months later, Judah is told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been, she's been, hara. She's pregnant. Through prostitution or fornication. She's been immoral and she's pregnant. The thing is used twice here. She has committed adultery and she's pregnant by that adultery. I'm sorry, she has committed prostitution and she's pregnant by that prostitution because in the ancient world, the floozies were prostitutes. Now that's just called being woke. In the ancient world, a young lady before marriage was pure. Now that's absurd in our day. In the ancient world, you didn't sleep with your husband before marriage. Now, why buy the cow? The milk's for free. They would have, Maggie, they were not cool with it. She's outside of marriage. They were not cool with it. So take the DeLorean back to the 1950s and 40s. This would have not been acceptable. But now it's commonplace because how would you know about a good car until you test drive it? And women are like, cars, you should just test drive them. And if that sounds evil to you, it's because men are evil. They eat dirt and they have cooties. This shows how utterly awful we are as sinners, both then and now, because we have gotten so righteous that this isn't even a sin anymore. Have a pastor try to put somebody on discipline for messing around outside of marriage. It will not happen. And we are all guilty of it. And we need salvation. We need a Savior. We need a Savior. We need a Savior. Oh, he's coming though. He's in Tamar's belly. Judah said, bring her out. Make a fire. We're going to burn this witch. I mean, this is Salem. We need a Savior. She's brought out, sent word to her father-in-law. So she's brought out and she's got him. She literally got him. Literally and metaphorically, she's got him. Well, the man whom these belong to, that's the guy that made me pregnant. Please identify who these are: the signet, the cord, and the staff. I've got this staff, and I've got this cord, and I've got this signet ring, and that's who's the daddy is. We don't need a Jerry Springer show in order for the DNA test to occur, in order to find out who the daddy is. Because, this is Jerry Springer, like right here in Genesis chapter 38. Oh, it is a good thing that she kept him. Maggie, Tamar? Well, let's find out about Tamar. Judah, he recognized them, and he said, Zadik. She is more Zadik than I am. She is more righteous than I am. She's more righteous than I am, since I did not give her Shelah. This is very important, though. He did not just say, well, we had a magic moment and everything, so might as well just continue on. No, he does not. He did not know her again. This was evil. This was bad. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I should have given you Shelah, and now I've messed the whole thing up. And when the time came for her labor, there were twins in her room. And when she was labor, she put out her hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, this one came out first. But he drew back his hand. Behold, his brother came out. And she says, what a breach you have made for yourself. His name was called Perez. And after his brother came out with a scarlet card on his hand, his name was called Zerah. So we had a little bit of fun. So first kid is breach. So Zerah sticks his hand out to come out. We are getting the blow by blow and push by push of Tamar's baby. The baby sticks his hand out, and they wrap a cord around it. But the baby pulls his hand back in. And when the firstborn comes out, his name is Perez, which means breach. Like the first baby wasn't the first baby. The second baby pushed him out of the way and took the first spot. His name is Perez. The second baby is named Zerah, which means, I think it means above, or brightness, probably from the thread on his wrist. So Perez shot through the opening. His name can mean opening as well. So Perez shot through the opening and was first. And Zerah was second. Now, this is very important, and we have just enough time to do it. We had this before. We've heard this story before. We heard this story back in Matthew's Gospel when we did Matthew's Gospel together. Matthew chapter 1, the genealogy of Jesus, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron was the father of Ram. Make no mistake about it. Come closer. This bad story, your Lord takes it on. To the Abraham David crowd, to those who are so holy that they can't go into the praetorium lest they get defiled, to the people who say there are good people and then there are sinners. In the midst of their of the genealogy of David, the king, and then later Jesus the Christ. Felicity, this is important. Stay with me. This gross story is to show you how much of a Savior Jesus is for you. For right smack in the middle of his genealogy, his family tree, is this awful hot mess, literally and figuratively, because he is born. He is Perez's kid. This Sunday's gospel, Maggie, is I thank you that I'm not like the tax collectors and sinners. He will save the Abraham David crowd from their sins, even the sins they don't know about. And this story is so awful that it would go unnoticed. In the north, when I served up north, they would always say, well, we don't talk about that. And this is a story so bad that even in the South, where you can have a beer with somebody and they will tell you their life story, they would say, well, there's an incident. We don't really talk about it. Even in the South, they wouldn't talk about the story because it's so bad. So this is so important because it lays out for you what kind of Savior Jesus is. He is a Savior of people who have skeletons in their closet. He is a Savior for Tamar. He is a Savior for Judah. He is the Savior for the whole hot mess of folks. No sin too great, thank God, says Nadine Reed, and she's dead on. She's dead right. And he's the Savior who not only drags the skeletons out, says Pastor Finker, but he dies for them. They stay in the tomb, and you live. So whatever Tamar-like moment sin you have, know that Jesus knows it. He's taken it on. He's died for it. And by his stripes, you are healed. And his blood covers your sin too. Next time the dean gets this story. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., we will continue. If we find ourselves having left the dean with you meant it for evil, God meant it for good, I probably will teach on Saturday, but let's see how far we get tomorrow. Have a great day. The Lord's blessings on your day. Remember, Christ died for all of your skeletons in the closet. He died for them all. Have a great day.